Welcome to the Beyond the Call podcast, where history, leadership, and heroism come alive. Today's episode explores Commander George Fleming Davis and the destroyer United States Ship Walke during the approach to Lingayen Gulf, a powerful story of courage and perseverance. If you enjoy learning more about military history and extraordinary individuals, be sure to visit Trackpads.com for articles, podcasts, and more. Commander George Fleming Davis earned the Medal of Honor for extraordinary bravery while commanding the destroyer United States Ship Walke on January 6, 1945, during the approach to Lingayen Gulf in the Philippine Islands. When a coordinated wave of suicide aircraft, often called kamikaze, dove on his ship, he stayed on the exposed bridge, which is the ship's open command platform, and calmly directed the fight. The ship's guns roared to life, and maneuvering orders snapped across the intercom as two attackers were blasted from the sky before a third slammed into the Walke. Badly burned and mortally wounded, Davis refused to give up command until the threat was broken and his crew had the ship under control. The moment was chaos, with flames sweeping the bridge and aviation fuel burning hot while more aircraft angled for killing blows. Yet Davis never left his post. He steadied the destroyer's course, kept the guns firing, and orchestrated damage control, which is the trained effort to fight fires and flooding, to save lives and preserve the mission. In those critical minutes, his leadership turned a near catastrophe into a fighting chance for the Walke and for the task force she guarded. This is the story of a calm, unflinching commander whose final act of service still echoes across the history of the Pacific War. By early January of 1945, the Allied push across the Pacific reached the threshold of Luzon, the largest and most strategically vital island in the Philippines. The immediate objective was Lingayen Gulf, whose broad beaches and inland road network offered the best corridor to Manila and the Central Plains. Control of Luzon would cut Japan's supply routes to Southeast Asia and restore a major American ally to the fight. To get there, invasion convoys and covering forces had to run a deadly gauntlet along the island's western approaches. Japan answered this advance with concentrated suicide air attacks that had surged since late 1944. Pilots flying explosive-laden aircraft aimed to sink ships outright with single, devastating strikes rather than merely damage them. These attacks tried to break the invasion shield by targeting vulnerable escorts and command ships. The tactic turned every approach lane into a killing ground where vigilance and ship handling mattered as much as firepower. American naval power met this threat with layered defenses built around carriers, cruisers, and destroyers. Fast carriers struck at airfields to thin out attackers before they could launch, while cruisers provided heavy anti-aircraft fire. Destroyers formed the agile outer screen, using rapid maneuver, radar direction, and dense gun batteries to blunt incoming raids. In this moving web of protection, a single ship's steadiness could decide whether a formation held together or fractured under pressure. The approach to Lingayen demanded days of exposure as convoys threaded narrow waters within reach of multiple airfields. Weather and geography complicated detection, giving attackers low sun angles and coastal masking that helped them dive in by surprise. Communication nets crackled as ships passed contact reports, assigned firing sectors, and rehearsed damage control priorities. Every hour at sea increased fatigue, and the constant alerts left little rest for bridge teams and gun crews. Within this larger armada, Commander Davis's destroyer served as a frontline guardian of the transports and heavier combatants. The ship's job was to spot threats early, throw up a hard curtain of fire, and, if hit, stay in the fight long enough to protect the formation. Screening duty also meant sharp course changes, laying smoke when needed, and coordinating with nearby ships to avoid blocking one another's guns. It was in this high-stakes environment that Davis and his crew faced the onrush of attackers off Luzon. Let's continue our journey through history. George Fleming Davis was born in Manila in 1911 to American parents connected to the growing United States presence in the Pacific. Drawn to the sea from an early age, he earned an appointment to the United States Naval Academy and embraced the demanding life of a midshipman. Commissioned in the interwar Navy, he served in a fleet that prized ship handling, gunnery, and calm judgment under pressure. Those traits defined his reputation long before his final command. As the Pacific War widened, Davis's assignments took him across a theater where destroyers carried outsized risks. Peers noted his steady voice on the bridge and his habit of preparing crews for worst-case moments rather than hoping they would never come. That preparation showed in routine drills, plain-spoken briefings, and a focus on damage control as a fighting skill, not an afterthought. By the time he assumed command of United States Ship Walke, sailors trusted him in heavy weather and hard combat alike. Here is the essence of his Medal of Honor action in plain words. While operating ahead of the main force to protect minesweeping operations that would clear the way for heavier ships to enter Lingayen Gulf, 4 Japanese suicide planes were detected flying low over land to attack at the same time. Commander Davis took his place on the exposed wing of the bridge, directed his team to pick up the leading plane, and ordered fire that sent the first target crashing into the water, with the second breaking past the bridge and plunging into the sea off the port side. The third plane struck the after end of the bridge structure, drenching him in gasoline and setting him ablaze. Yet he continued to steer, rallied his command, and kept his guns firing until they destroyed the fourth attacker. Only when fires were under control and the ship's safety was assured did he allow himself to be carried below, and he succumbed to his wounds several hours later, having steeled his crew to complete a vital mission. In the early morning light of January 6, 1945, United States Ship Walke steamed ahead of the invasion force, guarding the minesweepers that were clearing a path into Lingayen Gulf. Radar showed intermittent returns, and word passed through the fleet of incoming enemy aircraft. Commander Davis ordered full readiness, guns manned, ammunition ready, and fire control solutions tracking the approaching threat. His ship stood alone without supporting gunfire from nearby vessels, an exposed but essential shield for the fleet's advance. The Japanese pilots came in low, hugging the coastline to stay hidden, then turned seaward in a coordinated suicide run. Davis stood on the bridge wing, fully exposed to blast and smoke, and directed his gunners with practiced precision. The first attacker broke from formation and dove for the bow, and the forward mounts fired in perfect lead until the aircraft disintegrated in the water ahead. Without pause, the crew shifted to a second plane that swept over the bridge and crashed into the sea off the port side, narrowly missing the superstructure. A third attacker broke through the barrage and slammed into the walk near the bridge, and the fuel ignited into a raging fire. Flames engulfed Davis, who was badly burned, but he refused to give up command. Through smoke and heat, he issued steering orders and directed fire against the remaining threat so that his crew kept control of the ship. The fourth enemy aircraft dove in next, and under his steady guidance, the guns brought it down before impact. Amid the chaos, the crew fought to contain the fires that threatened the ammunition stores and the engineering spaces. Davis's calm voice, rough from smoke, carried over the intercom and over the noise of pumps and fire hoses. He focused his men on the essentials and urged them to hold the line until the last blaze was out. Only when the immediate danger had passed did he agree to be carried below for treatment, and despite the corpsman's efforts, his wounds were too severe. Damage control teams stabilized the vessel, patched breaches, and restored propulsion, which means they got the engines and steering back to dependable order. Reports from nearby ships soon noted the Walke holding station and continuing to protect the approach lane as other destroyers rotated forward. The cost of that survival was measured in one man's life and in the courage he inspired in others. Davis's decision to stay on the burning bridge ensured the ship's survival and the completion of its mission. George Fleming Davis's final command revealed more than courage because it showed how discipline turns training into instinct when conditions seem impossible. His refusal to leave the bridge was not recklessness, but a leader's understanding that chaos spreads fastest when guidance disappears. By standing his post, he gave his crew a steady point of reference amid fire and confusion. That clarity preserved the ship and the lives of men who might have panicked in the face of near-certain death. The lesson endures for sailors and soldiers today. Leadership is not a title, it is an action carried through in moments of crisis. Davis's composed orders showed how trust, drilled teamwork, and visible calm can outweigh numbers or firepower. Modern leaders who study combat decisions still find value in his example, because decisive action built on preparation and quiet authority can turn the tide. Beyond tactics, his story carries an ethical weight about responsibility and sacrifice. In a profession built on collective duty, he accepted the ultimate risk so his command could keep fighting. That choice embodies the spirit behind the Medal of Honor, the willingness to face death so others may survive. Whether commanding a ship or leading a small team, today's service members can see in Davis a timeless model of resolve. In the end, George Fleming Davis's stand on the burning bridge of United States Ship Walke captures the purpose of a destroyer and the character of a commander. Hold the line, protect the formation, and save your crew. His sacrifice secured the ship, safeguarded the mission into Lingayen Gulf, and left a legacy that still guides leaders under pressure. His example lives on wherever courage meets duty at sea. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of the Beyond the Call podcast. If you would like to dive deeper into more stories of bravery, leadership, and history, visit Trackpads.com. Until next time, keep exploring, stay inspired, and remember, the lessons of the past shape the warriors of the future.